Are you a business owner looking for real advice and input? You're in the right place. From concept to launch to growth, funding, and beyond. Welcome to Startup Hustle with your hosts. One once sold a business for $150 million. The other, the author of $1 Million Bedroom. Here are your hosts of Startup Hustle, Matt DeCoursey and Matt Watson.
1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. 'Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.
And we're back. Another episode of Startup Hustle. Matt DeCoursey here with Juaquan Herron. Will be sitting in for Matt Watson today. Juaquan, what's up?
Man, nothing much, man. Just glad to be here. KC hometown. Love to talk about my business, so let's talk.
I'm ready to talk to you. Now, before we get into that, there's a couple things that I want to get out of the way. First off, today's episode of Startup Hustle is brought to you by Fullscale.io. We can help you build a software development team quickly and affordably. You can also go check us out on the gram at the Startup Hustle podcast page, and we're on YouTube, TikTok. Find us somewhere. Now, you know that I like it when you're interactive, so today's topic is comic book startups, and I want you to go to 2923comics.com because we're going to talk all about that with Juaquan Herron, who is also known as Jay Allen. He is the CEO and creator at 2923 Comics and the inventor of the Scarlet Knight.
Yes.
Is all this true?
Yes, that's who I am. Started the Scarlet Knight about a year ago. In November of last year, I was self-published by that summer, man. And just been,
You gave me an episode once. You came out to the Full Scale Suite.
Yeah, sure did.
And I checked it out. I read
man.
it. I read it up.
Self-published, how you like it?
He's the defender of the neighborhood.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, man. He
Yeah.
can take care of the hood.
Yeah, and that's that's pretty much based off my life. I mean, my high school mascot was the Scarlet Knight.
I was wondering where that came from. So as we'll get started now, what can be interesting about today's episode is we can follow the kind of comic book storyline.
Yeah.
So every hero or comic book character has a backstory.
Yes.
What's yours?
So I can just pretty much tell you the premise of the comic book. So it's about two cousins.
No, I want yours.
Oh.
I want to know Jay Allen.
Jay Allen's backstory. Okay,
Yes.
man.
Yes,
Okay.
as an entrepreneur and a
Okay.
comic book creator, what brought you to creating
comic books.
Yeah.
So I was an actor at first. I graduated from Missouri State University, health and wellness promotions degree, marketing degree. So from there, started to get into acting and started to realize I wanted to go to Los Angeles. So I went down to Los Angeles, met my mentor, Scott Brown, who pretty much told me how to write content. Got tired of knocking on doors and things like that. And that's how I ended up coming home and starting to write, this little stuff, creative writings and things like that. And that's when we came to the Scarlet Knight. The reason why I started to write the Scarlet Knight is because trying to do short films, which is what I did in the Kansas City area, trying to do short films and things like that, it wasn't moving fast enough for me. But I knew with the comic book, I can get it drawn up, I can get the storyline out there, and I can get people to pay me to receive it rather than putting it on YouTube and hoping that people like it. So that's how we pretty much came to the Scarlet Knight. I started doing it, I put it out there, and it started to do really well.
Well, so the backstory is guy from Kansas City picks some of the most unlikely things to try to be successful at.
Yes, pretty much. Yes, pretty much. Yeah.
I mean, let's be realistic.
Yeah.
And so my cousin Michael is an actor.
Okay.
And he has done a lot of different things, but probably makes more of a living teaching people how to potentially be actors.
Yes.
And man, that's a tough way. That's a tough way to make a living.
Yeah.
Because it's. But at the same time, I bet on many levels it prepares you for being an entrepreneur. Yeah. Because actors hear a hell of a lot of no.
Yeah, you hear that damn lot of no's.
And you want to talk about brutal feedback. You're too old. You're too fat. You don't have enough hair.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I mean, and it's like a kind of a brutal reality.
Yeah. Hearing I had a twang in my voice, I'm like, I got a twang in my voice? Like, yeah, you have a twang in your voice. I'm like, I never noticed that. But these are things that other people notice because they had to put you on screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they pretty much tell you, you're doing this a little bit differently. And I was doing pretty well. I actually had a lot of managers. I had a lot of agents. It just wasn't going where it needed to go quickly. I'm a hustler, so I need to have 10 toes down every day and making progression.
I always tell people I've got a face made for radio.
Oh, yeah. No, that's funny.
Well, that's true. And by the way, you can see that face made for radio at and Mr. Allen. Now that's your pen name.
Yeah, that's my pen name, J. Allen.
But you can check us out. We're on the YouTube. Our talking heads will be there. By the way, you can go to Scarlet_Knight 2923 on Instagram.
Yeah, check it out,
and
man.
See some stuff.
See some stuff, man.
Yeah.
I'm more of a I tailor my business more of like what a musician would. You know,
Okay.
always releasing content, always letting you know what I'm doing, always active, always moving. A lot of my fellow creators, I just think I'm kind of tailoring it a little bit different how I want to do things. I've been told I do things a little different, a little unorthodox, but I mean, it is what it is.
Well, I mean, that kind of comes with the territory of doing a lot of different things. So, all right, the comic book has been out, what, it's about 100 years?
Yeah, about a year now.
What? But comic books in general.
Oh, man, yeah, about 100 years.
I mean, it's like the old Superman,
Yeah.
DC Comics or whatever,
Yeah.
and it's, I think comic books on some level, well, I don't want to say peaked, but they were, there was a lot more of them sold.
Yeah.
A long time ago, and now I think the comic book is the characters have morphed into movie, cartoon, different types of stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
And the community is a little bit against that now, man. Like people don't like the movies and the things like that. They want to get back to the comic books, the prints. Okay. Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a second. So now you did some different things, and you decide that you want to have. I mean, coming out with your own comic book. Mm-hmm. And it's an independent type thing. I mean, that's a comic book startup. So what kind of stuff did you have to look at? What did you have to consider? What did you maybe not consider that was really important and so on? Like, how do you do a comic book startup?
So pretty much what you do is you got to write the story.
Sure.
You got to make sure you got a good idea. And the thing with me is I know a lot of other creators, sometimes they might ask, how does this idea sound to you? I didn't do that. I just kind of wrote what I liked, and it started off as a dedication to my grandparents who passed away about 3 years ago. So this was my way of kind of giving the world the tips and trades, the morals, those ethics that they passed on to me. So wrote the story. First off, I had got the story down, and then the next, you have to find the artist. So what I typically did is, some people, I wasn't in the industry at first. So what I did was a hashtag comic book artist on Instagram. And I went through thousands of artists, found Peterson after like the 10th guy that I was interested in, but I like Peterson Olivier. Shout out to Peterson. That's my illustrator. And I just hit him up. And like out of all the people that I hit up, I said, hey man, I got a comic book that I'm trying to get made. And he was like, when you want to start? And that's when I knew like this the guy I'm supposed to work with. He didn't go to the finances. He didn't do all that. I think I caught him at the right time in his career where he was ready to get something cracking, and it was just match made in heaven. But then I started to realize how much his fees were for lettering and coloring, and I was like, man, I can't afford that. That would have been like $100. That would have been like $175, close to $175. I'm like, man, I can't do that. Then I found my other guy, who's in Indonesia, and he does my letters and my colors for $25. So rather than me paying $50 just for the coloring, he charged me.
When you say $50, you talking per hour?
No, per page.
Okay, per page.
Yeah, per page.
Okay. So by the way, and so I want to compare this to some of the scenarios that many startup and different entrepreneurs face. In the world of software, you often find a technical co-founder. Mm-hmm. So, and that's, me, I tell people I write checks, not code.
Yeah.
So, I function well when I have someone that's a technical co-founder. That's like what kind of Matt Watson does with some of the stuff that we do. But that's what you needed. You had a story. You had something you wanted to push, and you need to find the right partners to work with.
To do it, yeah.
And it's interesting that you identified that person quickly, because that's not always the case.
No.
And there are a lot of things that can come up. Like, I mean, so did that just feel right? You mentioned like he's ready to go, and you're like, hey, I get it. Like,
it was organic, bro.
Sure.
Like when I tell you how organic was, like literally, I just knew like this is the guy I was supposed to work with. And then what sucked is that people were telling me not to work with him. They was like, oh man, this is kind of what's going on out here. This is the style that's going on out here. This is what you should do. But I was like, no, this is the guy that has the style that I want. I told him exactly what I needed, and he produced that. So this is who I'm going to work with. This is who I'm going to roll with. And it worked. I didn't drink the Kool-Aid, as they would say. I didn't drink the Kool-Aid. I just kind of did what I wanted to do. And some people didn't like me for it. Some people didn't like my content for it, but did well outside.
I can't imagine with comic books that you could ever produce something that would be universally liked anyway. So you're always going to have people that are going to complain about something.
This doesn't look good, or the art could be better here. I'm like, man,
Don't read it.
Yeah, I'm good.
Move on. Move on to something different.
Yeah, I'm good.
I mean, that's always going to happen. Anything that's creative, so I worked in the music industry for almost a decade, and I got pretty used to that. And I know a lot of, still spend a lot of time with some well-known musicians, and with that, they've learned to. The feedback is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, like you will never produce as a creator, and especially an artist, so musician or a painter or a comic book writer, any of that stuff, you will never produce something that everybody loves.
No.
It's just because people have different tastes. It's the same way with music. Like one person will be like, that's the worst song I've ever heard in my life. And then 10 other people will be like, it's brilliant. And it just happens.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you went ahead and rolled right through that.
I just did it, man. I mean, I knew for a fact when I went into the comic book industry that I didn't look like everybody there. And I knew I had a different background than everybody there. So I was already getting ready for some of those.
When you say that difference, like, I mean, is it like a whitewashed kind of industry?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because when I picture comic books, I picture kind of a bunch of white, nerdy dudes.
And
like,
it's a lot of dope black creators out here, bro. Like, it's a lot of, like, dope black creators that are really out here.
I would think so. I wasn't sure. That's what I picture reading it. I don't know about the creating of it.
And just people in color in general.
Do you want to know something interesting?
Go ahead.
I used to work at a comic book store.
Oh, dang. Which one? Here?
It was, dude, I can't even remember what the name of it was. It was in Redbridge. And it was only in business for like 9 months. And I knew the guy that opened it, and I would work there on Sundays. And this was in 1994.
Oh, wow.
Long time ago,
yeah.
But yeah, I just basically just sat there and rang stuff up when people came in and played pinball.
And read, bro.
I did read some, and I remember I used to read Bloodshot.
See, you know what?
I
gotta
still
get.
Out?
Yeah, I think they're about to have a movie with Vin Diesel coming out. I think this Vin Diesel.
So there was a lot of different stuff, and there was a lot of, and all the movies that are out now weren't then,
comic book movies.
Yeah, but it was interesting. So, and some of the people, man, they were so serious about that stuff.
I mean, they still are.
Yeah, I get it. It's being passionate. I always found it interesting and fun.
Yeah.
I was never really that overly involved in the commentary.
No, bro.
But so here's the thing: is like you imagine this like giant wall in a long, store in a strip mall.
Yeah.
And the whole wall was covered with, just had different comic books, and these things would come out, and sometimes they'd sell, sometimes they weren't. But I bet we had 150 different titles.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there were some people that came in, like there was some weird stuff, obscure. I don't want to say your stuff's weird or obscure, but this is an independent book. And there were people that would come in for some of those things, and they, and that was part of what we did too, is like, hey man, that new edition came out, and just sit there and call some people, and some of the people come in, they buy the whole stack.
Yeah, they already know the release dates. They're already ready for it.
Well, this was in 94, in 93, 94. We didn't have the internet the way that we do now.
Yeah.
So like technically we did, but I mean, dude, this was like 28K dial-up.
Oh yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, people, you weren't like, hang on, let me get out my phone. We didn't have cell phones and do stuff like that. So, but yeah, that was interesting. Okay, so back to the startup of this. So you find someone to illustrate, you find someone to color. You're doing these things within the constraints of your budget.
Yeah.
All right, now you got to produce these things, right?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
So I tried to go through a publisher first. So I was sending my contact to publishers, and they were passing, and I was just like, dang. So that was kind of like discouraging. I was just like, bro, I was talking to different. You always got to get you a mentor. You always got to get you somebody you can ask questions, because I was new to this industry, and that's when I hit up my boy Greg, who created Asana Wear Spider. Hit him up, contacted him, and he just was giving me tips. He's like, bro, you're going to have to self-publish. You're going to have to just print it on your own. But what was happening, let's jump back. I was self-funding this out of my pocket at first. And then I was talking to another mentor, two fraternity brothers of mine, and he was like, Juaquan, you're going to have to do Indiegogo. You're going to have to do a crowdfunding, or you're going to put yourself in a position where you're just going to go completely broke trying to do this. So what I did was I did the Indiegogo and got funded. First round, I got funded.
How much did you raise?
I raised think it was $1,500 for the first one.
It's a pretty
You
modest
know what?
amount. Yeah.
I think it might have been more than that. It might be like 20 something, but I can't think off the top of my head. But it was pretty good. I funded. I was like 117% funded, and then from there, I got it all finished up. Worked with Peterson, got it all finished up, and then sent it out to the backers. And now I'm in a position where now I'm self-published.
Sure.
Went to Impress, was printing them off, and I just started selling them. And when I tell you, I was like selling them out the back of my car, meeting people, got my website up and running. I mean, literally, hey, you like comic books? Yeah, I got a comic book. You want to take interest in it? Yeah, sure. And then from there, I started to do the real hustle. I was like, nah, bro, I want to be in the comic book stores.
Now, by the way, for those of you listening, so the company that Matt Watson and I own, Full Scale, we do local events. We have a couple suites, and we try to take the work out of networking. And I can't remember what event that you came to, but
it was the two guys with the two cellos.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even our real suite. They actually relocated us. We were in like a relocated one, so we weren't even in the Full Scale suite. But yeah, you came and and honestly, I was really impressed because a lot of people show up and they do what they do and they use the ticket and they hang out and they drink my beer, and that's fine. That's why I invited you. But you actually brought me a bag of stuff.
Yeah,
you brought me, and I still have it.
Yeah,
I actually, it's funny. I found it again the other day.
Good.
Because I looked through some of it, and then I've got kind of like some stuff. I get a lot of swag.
Yeah.
From a lot of different things that I
Yeah.
go to, a lot of different companies. People bring it in for the podcast, and I have it. And I actually saw the comic book the other day, and you gave me a T-shirt.
Yep.
But you had a bag, and you were ready. You were like, "Hey, man, this is what's up." And we actually even talked about healthy hip hop.
Yep. Talked about healthy hip hop.
Yeah,
I actually
that's-
seen him at
Roy.
at Tech Venture. I was taking a class
Yeah.
because I'm getting ready to hop into Tech. So I was taking this class in UMKC for Tech, and he came in there. He spoke to the class
Yeah.
for a little bit.
Yeah, Roy just got accepted into Techstars and
Oh, that's what's up.
and won the Arch Grant
Oh yeah.
award.
I think that's what he just said when he came there.
Yeah, that's a couple $100,000 between just those two and stuff. And yeah, we've invested significantly in that. We'll be having quite a few episodes about the release of that. But with that, we had to create a whole line of characters, which we did.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys. I remember you telling me about that.
It took a while. We actually used the creative team, and
Okay.
at our office in Cebu, one of our creative guys is a very gifted digital illustrator. But
Okay.
it was hard because you're like, hey man, we need to create. I told him to create 16 characters, but know that we would probably only pick 8.
Yeah.
And this is about how broad it was. I was like, give me a zebra, give me a tiger, give me a lion, give me a monkey, give me a cheetah, and he
Give me
came
everything I
back
need.
and we kind of bounced those characters around. Is that the same way it goes with a comic book? Like you have your character in mind, but now you got to have a hero, you got to have a villain, you got to have some ancillary characters. Is that how that works
So everybody in my comic book is actually a real person.
Okay.
So these are actually real people, and my grandparents are even in the comic book.
Okay.
Their likenesses in the comic book. So
It's easy to write about stuff that
already happened.
Yeah, sure.
Our stories, every day we live a story.
Yeah.
So what I did was I just kind of like tried to play and think of different storylines that happened in my childhood and in my past. And I was just like, dog, that would be a dope story because it really happened. And it was cool. This is what a lot of people do with true stories.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that, but also with my Meet the Hills, even though I have people that's in that book that are real people, coming up with the storyline was a little crazy because these are vampire hunters. So I'm like, we don't know the vampire hunters, but I do know some family dynamics that dealt with this in a crazy way. So you just pretty much just come up with different ideas, how this person is. You already know how they look. That's the easy part because this person's a real person. But just trying to see their personality, pulling their personality onto the page and make sure it comes out in the page. That was the hard part.
Okay, so you're self-published now. I've written 3 books. I've self-published all of them. I use Amazon's publishing platform, which was called Create Space and is now called Kindle Direct. You basically upload a PDF to it. Now, there's a hell of a lot more that goes into it on the way to creating that PDF. But the world of self-publishing from a book standpoint, especially an ebook standpoint, has become very accessible. It's like you and I, if we wanted to, 24 hours from now, assuming we had some but there's actually an article out there a guy wrote about how easy it was to self-publish, and he wrote a book about his left foot, and all it said was, "This is my left foot," and it had a picture of his foot, and he, like, literally within an hour had created a publishable content. Now, this is like the world's worst book, because it was like, hey, this is my left foot, and there it is. But the point was, it was really easy. Can you do that same thing with something like a comic book?
Yeah, I mean, just pretty much all you're doing is just using your content, going to a printing company. I went to Impress because I just loved their work that they've done in the past.
And who is that?
It's a printing company located in Kansas City, off of 11th Street, I want to say.
So do they? I mean, and so when they print the book, do they already print comic books, or were they printing other things? Or did they have to figure it out, or
they printed a lot of content. So they did print comic books, but they printed posters, postcards. They did it all, books. And yeah, I mean, I pretty much they have done it before in the past, and I've worked with Laura at Impress, and she pretty much said, yeah, this is ready to go. And your artists also should know how to tailor their pages to be ready for print. That was something I did not know, because she talked about the bleed, and I didn't understand what that meant.
That's the same way, like I mentioned, uploading a PDF to publish a book, like a book. People don't realize this is every other page is offset.
Yeah.
Because when you open a book, just imagine opening a book like I'm opening my hands as if they're a book right now, because everyone that's listening can see that.
Yeah.
Joke, but when you open a book, the spacing's different because of where the spine is.
Yes.
And there's definitely a bleed, and then actually, like, the whole process too is like you actually print like one to make sure that it's not a total shit show.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a bleed and different things, and like, you have to give compensation to like where the cover and all that stuff is cut.
Yeah.
And it's not slicing through things, and it doesn't look sloppy. And then like, so here you have one of the, can I
go
have
ahead.
the book? So, so, and this is a kind of a glossy print. Now that I feel, I mean, these are high resolution.
Yeah.
And this is great. And by the way, go to 2923comics.com. Okay, so they print all this. Now, how big of a batch do you print?
So the first round I did 100 copies.
Okay.
And that was to get the backers what they needed, and then also have some left over. I had about 30 left over. So what I did was I started to hit the comic book stores. And I was like, I want this in the comic book stores, because I'm selling this out the back of my car. And shout out to Pulp Fiction Comics out there in Lee Summit, was the first person to ever give me a check. Went out there and I said, hey, I got some comic books. And he was like, how much you want for them? Because I had already been talking to him about trying to get my comic book up and running.
How much are these?
These right now are $5. They were $7 at first. I was selling them for $7. But I found a way to kind of make my prices go down a tad.
So you're
bit.
talking about selling these like $5 at a time. That's like the proverbial mixtape out of the trunk. Like, hey man, give me $5 for my cassette, my CD, something like that.
And that's what I said. I learned from other industries.
Yeah, and one of the people I talk about in my book $1 Million Bedroom is JC Lopez, who's the founder of Urban Necessities, and he started selling. And that's a huge sneaker resale. They have a store in Brooklyn, another one in Vegas. They're partnered with American Eagle now, and they sell millions and millions and millions. But he started hustling Jordans out of his trunk of his car.
Yeah.
And that's read about it in $1 Million Bedroom. It's interesting. But I mean, you mentioned having 10 toes on the ground and getting out there and doing stuff. So how long did it take you to sell the original run?
So the original run, it didn't take me that long at all. Probably like a month, maybe a few weeks. Like, I was actually surprised of how quick I was selling. And I think what made me unique is I didn't look like anybody else in my community doing it. It was no one else here that I know that was selling comic books that was from the neighborhood that I grew up in, that had a background the way that I had a background, who was telling the story the way that I was telling the story. And I just think it was a match made in heaven. I think it was all organic. More than anything I've ever done as far as a hustle, this was the only thing that was like super organic. Like, everything just flowed like it needed to flow.
So now let's be realistic. So 100 copies at $5 to $7 a piece. It's not a shitload of revenue.
Nope.
Some of that goes into the print cost. Some of that goes into the other stuff.
Yep.
Where did it go from there?
So I just got some more and just went back at it. And that's when I started to reach out to the comic book stores here in the city. Started doing that. Had my website up. I was selling on my website like crazy. I was selling something like 3 or 4 a day. Then that went up to like 7 to 8 a day. And then the business just started booming. And then that's when I started to realize I was starting to get pulled in to do like public speaking events, and the business was going like it needed to go. And my first con sold out 150 copies. And I was like, okay, now we're moving. Now we're moving. Now we're doing the things that we need to do. But I mean, my website was just pinging. I was just like, wow, this is really working. But I felt like I still wasn't getting the respect that was due, if that made any sense.
I mean, it does and it doesn't, because I don't know what respect in the comic book
Industry.
publication or industry, I don't know what that entails. But on some of it, I think that in any business or startup, respect is generated with sales.
Yeah.
Like in the end, like, do people buy it? Do they use it?
Yeah.
Is it useful? If it went away, would it be something that people talked about or missed, or any of that stuff? And that's kind of. But what? Tell me more about your take on that for comic book stuff.
My take on it was just, as far as respect, was interaction. I'm an interaction guy. So if I go to a con,
Interaction with who?
with different creators.
Okay, I see.
Different creators with my peers.
Your peers.
Yeah. So when I would go to these different cons, like, I knew I was getting respect from the community of the people who were buying it. But then when I was going to cons, I was catching people not speaking, or I would introduce myself to other creators, and the vibe was off. Like, they didn't really like, who is this guy? But I was like, I mean, clearly you know that I'm doing these things in the city. Like, I'm getting media attention. I'm getting attention as far as in the community, as far as speaking events and things like that. Like, clearly you should kind of like know me. And I wasn't trying to come at it on an ego level, but it was just more so like, I'm introducing myself and trying to be a friend, and just trying to be maybe a mentee. Just trying to, like, you've been in this industry for a while, can you help me out? Or can we just be friends? Or can I call you later? Wasn't getting that vibe back at all.
Are these people that are really, I mean, we don't have to name anyone, but are these people that were well-known writers or authors? Like, when you talk about, like, when you say con, you're talking about Comic-Con.
Comic-Cons,
right?
yes.
So, like, when it was here
conventions.
local in Kansas City, are these people that were touring in from other cities, or people that were here in KC?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Definitely both. And I can say 5 right off the top of my head. But I can say also the guys who were on, like, the bottom level kind of come up like me. We were more so building the community that way.
Sure.
And it was kind of like.
It's sometimes hard to know who, I go to events. I was at an event last night. There's probably 100 people there. And the thing and I'm not saying I'm known, but, you go and you meet a lot of people on a lot of different days. I have a hard time keeping track of who's who and who does what. Yeah. I try to be sensitive to, trying to slot that out and remember who people are. I actually sometimes after an event, if I can't place where I've run into someone before, I mean, that's where the internet and social media kind of helps me make that connection. So like, I had a couple people like look them up on Facebook and just
holler at them, like, just like,
examine it, man, like, and just try to remember. And and I try to avoid. I always want to avoid that. Sometimes I'll meet people and they, one day that looks like they just came there, they're like wearing a collar and their hair's all pretty, and the next time I see them, they're wearing like a hat and a hoodie or something, and they just don't look the same. I'm like, shit. Introducing myself, and we've already met. I'm like, man, I feel like a jerk.
Yeah, you kind of remembering faces, and like, I'm good at remembering faces. Names, I'm not so much good at, bro. Like, I can remember your face and kind of sometimes kind of pinpoint where I met you.
That I can do,
but
putting it all together.
Like,
it's hard. Okay, so now as we are progressing down the timeline with this, like, all right, we get the initial one out, get some other stuff coming out, you're feeling like you're gaining some traction. What was something that you failed at along the way that you thought would be a lot easier, or maybe came out of nowhere and smacked you?
Oh, man. Something that I failed at was reaching out to publishers too early. I wasn't ready yet.
Sure.
And knowing that now, like, my content, I know my content was on point because it sells and it resells. But what was making me go crazy was that, like, why aren't these publishers dealing with me? Why aren't they seeing that I'm hustling? Why aren't they seeing that I'm different, that I'm unique, to a certain extent, And I was like, why aren't they not seeing this? I wasn't ready.
There's a lot of noise.
So I wasn't ready.
Well, there's a lot of noise, and you look at like a publisher, whether it's a comic book or a book or an album or all that. I mean, dude, there's a lot of it.
It's a lot of it.
There's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of content. There's a lot of, And so, you know, and I talk to people about this, especially with books. So I just did a speech recently about how to self-publish a book.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I told people, I'm like, just go publish your own book. Like,
just go do it.
The idea that who are you is a good question. And these publishers, I mean, dude, every day get bins. I mean, bins that like have wheels that you push full of books that people are trying to submit for publication. And the very first question they're going to ask is, who the fuck is this guy or gal? You know,
or can I resell it?
Well, who are you and why do I want to listen? Because that's a big part of publishing standard books, not necessarily comic books, but I would imagine that's the same thing. And like some of it is, I don't know. I mean, and some of that too is you got to show up really looking like you're in the business of whatever it is you say that you do. And, you know, I get people that give me business plans for their .com that they want me to invest in, and then they'll want me to email them at their Yahoo email. I'm like, that doesn't really blow me away. You're seeking investment in a tech company, but you can't set up an email at your own domain. That, like, stuff like that, it gets noticed.
You got to be ready.
It does. And so some of that too is, and it's the same thing with acting. It's some of that's your presentation. Like, what are you sending to people? It's kind of like a resume. Like, if your resume looks like crap and it's got errors all over it, and you have a picture that's clearly 15 years old,
it ain't gonna work.
It just it doesn't make the right impression. So what advice can you give about now? Are you still independent?
Yeah, still independent. Actually, with the Hills, I have like a pre-offer on the table right now. I'm kind of keep them on hush, but I got a pre-offer on the table for Meet the Hills, which is the graphic novel that I'm working on right now, 60-page graphic. Working with a new artist out of Italy, and I'm still independent as far as the Scarlet Knight Defender of the Block, and I think I'll stay that way. But unless somebody comes. And I'm also on like different platforms like Comixology, which is through Amazon. I'm on there right now. I'm on Peep Game Comics. So I'm on a few platforms, but mostly just independent with the Scarlet Knight.
So what do you recommend for someone that wants to start their own comic book? Like where you know, we talked about, you mentioned trying to approach publishers too early. That just ended, I mean, in the end, that was an attempt and it didn't work out.
It didn't work out.
But you know what? Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming you know some people that have publication through other. What do they say about it? Because here's the thing: is like when it comes to a standard book, I keep a huge percentage of royalties for my books. Now, if I sold any of my books, so with my the most recent book that I published was The Realist Guide to a Successful Music Career. I've got members of Dave Matthews Band, American Idol winners, Grammy winners, like all kinds of people that are in that book. And it was, at that point, it was a legit conversation of, should we try to sell this to a publisher? Now, here's the thing. I would have gotten about $1, 50 cents to maybe $1 a book, as opposed to 10. Myself. So but that's the question, is that there's a lot to go with it, because one thing that people don't realize when it comes to publishers is, so let's just say someone picks up that book and they send it out to Barnes and Noble everywhere. If that doesn't sell right away, they send them back. And they're going to sit in a warehouse, and now you are in a position that you can't control. And you, because basically what's going to happen is there's an expense that goes with that. Your publisher is going to charge that against your sales. And I know people that have sold books to publishers, and even main publishers, they expect 4 out of 5 times that the book's going to fail. They're looking for the 20% that don't.
You got to ask yourself too, what are they losing on if they take you on? This is a business deal. This is an investment.
They're not just a fan.
And what are you getting out of it? Like, I know you may take, it's a good chance you're going to take less of a pay in royalties, but your book will be everywhere.
Well, right, and that's the trade-off. That's the trade-off. So, like, with the publication, you get distribution. And by the way, we went against self-publication because we looked at the book as something more like a franchise. We looked at it long. Like, we could publish supplemental versions of it. We could have some different things that came out. And then, honestly, the guy that I co-wrote it with, his band they've been around for 20 years, and they've got a huge following, and they started their own record label for their own stuff. Just because they're not standard. It's not pop. It's jam band songs, and most people don't play a 15-minute song on a radio.
No, they don't.
So they had a lot more control, and they've done well with that. So
they had to adapt.
We didn't really know what was going to occur. Now, that said, I mean, I haven't sold like 1 million copies.
No.
But who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's no way to know whether we made the right decision or the wrong.
Either way, bro.
Yeah, and the story's still being told.
Yeah, it can go either way, and that's why I tell people about your story. Like, I didn't know the Scarlet Knight was gonna sell. I didn't really know. I just wanted my content out there.
Yeah, sure.
And you know, before I got my business in order, I was just giving them out. Sometimes I see a kid on the corner, I give them out. But who knows if that kid's the nephew of somebody that may want to buy my rights.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. And you know, the thing is you shouldn't start doing anything creative thinking, man, I'm gonna get paid.
Heck no.
Like, get good at doing what you do, and the money's a byproduct of that.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the same for anything. It's not just creative. That's any kind of career you want to go into. You want to do anything. Get good at it.
Yeah.
And focus on that and not on money, and you will find that money is not the problem.
Every day you should be writing.
Yeah, sure.
If you're a writer, every day you should be writing.
Yeah.
I have a couple frat brothers that I talk to that are in Los Angeles, and they write. Every day I was like, man, I want to get into some of these writing rooms. Like, I would tell them, I was like, bro, I got content and I got stuff I can write, and I know I can write. They would say, hey, Quan, that's my nickname, or Jay, you're good, but you need to be writing every day.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bring you in any room you're not ready at.
Yeah, and the musicians that I know, and I know some that are pretty gifted at what they do, dude, they're playing all day.
Yeah.
Like, all day. And it's not like they're not just talented and they show up and be talented. Like, they are polishing that.
Their
like,
craft.
I mean, and actually there's a interesting conversation I've had with a few guys that I consider to be world-class guitarists, and saying, like, and they find a fascination with me because I consider myself to be top-notch when it comes to business or entrepreneurship. So we have a lot to talk about when it comes to stuff, and the question is like, at what point are you a genius and at what point are you crazy?
Yeah.
And the best answer that I've heard yet is, who cares?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, there's this fine line that goes down the middle of these things. Like, am I driven or am I obsessed?
Yeah.
You know, just like different stuff like that. And you know, really in the end, it's an outside perspective and anything else. But yeah, all the people that I know, that I like to say that success demands payment in advance. Like, you have to practice, you have to get good at what you do. But you know, and here's the thing, I think it's okay to have it in the back of your head, like, hey, I want to get really great at sales because I'd like to make a big check. Yeah. But you got to get really great at sales, and then the byproduct of that is getting paid. Yeah. Because your value increases. It's the same way with anything else. So yeah, if you're a writer, you got to write. If you're a musician, you got to play. Yeah. Yeah. If you're a speaker, get out there and speak. If you're an actor, get out there and act.
You got to do it. Yeah. You got to do it. You got to get to that point where you're just like, what the hell am I doing every day? Yeah, sure. That's how you know you're in a great space.
Well, yeah, and then, well, it's that, and also when, you know, they say that there's no such thing as luck, and luck is just preparation and opportunity meeting at an intersection, and I believe that.
No one can give you the road.
By the way, people will challenge me on that. And they'd be like, "What about the guy that won a lottery?" I'm like, he prepared by buying a ticket.
And he probably picked his numbers.
Sure.
Most likely picked his numbers.
I mean, whatever. Yeah. So you're still on some level. Like, you don't buy a ticket, you're not going to win the lottery. Yeah. And I'm not saying go buy lottery tickets. And if you do and you win because of this, you can definitely send a royalty payment. Yeah. We'll take it. I'll cash a check.
I'll take it.
Yeah. We'll split it. We'll split it. All right.
I sure will.
Okay, so as we round out this episode, now first off, if you want to go, and we didn't talk about the Scarlet Knight and much, and I left that way on purpose because I want those of you listening to go find a copy of this.
Go get a copy.
And now, where can we do that?
So you can go to 2923comics.com. Okay. You can also contact me through my Instagram. A lot of people do that as well, if they're local in the Kansas City area.
That's Scarlet_Knight 2923.
Yes, and that's my childhood home, man. I'm just putting that out there. That's my childhood home. I grew up there. You can contact me that way. You can also send an email to scarletknight2923@gmail.com if you want to get it there. I mean, whatever you need, man. Contact me. I don't care if it's in the back of a Walmart. I'll come and show up. I'm all about the hustle. So
I like it.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. I'm not
I like
squeamish.
it, man. I like it. Is there anywhere online, you mentioned some other of the things run by Amazon. Is there a place anywhere where, other than 2923 Comics?
You can go to comicsology.com. That's Amazon's platform. You can also go to peepgamecomics.com. And comics is spelled with an X, so it's COMIX.com. You can go there, and I'm also on their online platform as well.
And that's, once again, the Scarlet Knight. So with that, we like to end any episode of Startup Hustle Now with what we call the Founders Freestyle, where we give you the mic here for a second. I'll follow you up. Okay. You can drop whatever knowledge you want. You can talk about whatever you want, man.
Oh, man, cool.
It could be advice. It could be you can peddle your goods. You can do whatever you want. It's freestyle, man.
Man, first I'll peddle my goods, man, because that's a good thing. We got issue 2 coming out here in the next month. I'm already sending those out to backers from my last Kickstarter. My last Indiegogo. Man, I got crop top hoodies. I got hoodies. I got T-shirts. I got all kinds of stuff for merch for the Scarlet Knight, Defender of the Block. Also, man, just a little advice. Always don't be afraid to reach out to people, man. Some of those people that you will be thinking is the majority, that are actually championing for you. You will be so surprised who's out there right now watching you and looking at you and say, hey, man, I got your back. They just haven't told you yet. But you got to reach out, man. Just don't be afraid. And start writing. If you want to do it, you're going to lose some money. I'm just going to be honest with you, bro. Like, you're going to lose some money. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like what you're here for. If you're here to make a check, man, it might not never come. So you just got to also know that, man. I just want to kind of give you guys as much as possible and let you guys know, man, this is definitely hard. I would be lying to you if I said it wasn't days that every day I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? That's why I'm now getting into tech, man. So get ready for that. I'm going to be pitching to a few places and people in a few minutes, so you'll be looking out for that on my website as well. But man, I wish you guys the best, man. Stay strong out there. Keep writing that content, even if you go into these cons and to my other black creators out there and black creatives, man. I appreciate you guys. You motivated me. You motivated me to do what I'm doing right now, and I'm a very happy person these days, man. And I appreciate that. So keep writing, keep grinding, keep hustling.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I'm a fan, man. I like it. I like the hustle. I kind of want to make a Startup Hustle comic book now. It kind of sounds like a great idea. It'd be funny as the comic book, if it was based on my day, it would just be like frame after frame of a guy sitting in front of a computer, and then he makes a phone call, and then he stops and does a podcast, and then he goes back and sits in front of a computer. I'm not sure that would be too exciting.
You'd be surprised.
We'd have to give him like a superpower or something. With that, there's something you said that I think was really important, and that was, first off, it all was, but with that, don't be afraid to reach out. So I did that with all my books that I've written, and the thing is you're not going to get if you don't ask. There are so many people out there that are successful that have reached out to someone else.
Yes.
There's a weird thing for those that transfer knowledge. Knowledge transfer has existed for years. This is literally all of time. People passed knowledge down from generation to generation to generation. Knowledge is meant to be shared, and those that had some of it shared with them, and I'm one of them, feels that I have an obligation to oblige certain people, and I don't do it for everyone, but I've got some people that I've taken an interest in, and I mentor, and I do that very selflessly. And I enjoy doing it because I had a lot of people, like you said, that have embraced me. And believed in what I do and have done a lot to help me out. So anyway, with that, I'm going to get out of here, man, because I got to get caught up on the whole Scarlet Knight story.
Yeah, man, go ahead and do that, man.
Yeah, I'm on it. See you next time.
Yeah, man, y'all be cool out there, man. Peace.